Hello and welcome to Levant TV Headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin has scornfully dismissed calls from his US and French counterparts Barack Obama and Francois Hollande for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to step down. Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a car bomb attack in central Baghdad that killed 4 people and wounded 11 others. The United Nations has imposed sanctions on 4 British citizens who are fighting with Islamic State militants in Syria following a request from the British government. A suspected Saudi-led airstrike on a Yemeni wedding reportedly killed as many as 130 civilians, including many women and children, the United Nations said, adding it was attempting to confirm the figures. And a 20-year-old Iraqi has been found dead in a lorry near the French port of Calais, crushed by pallets as he tried to reach Britain, becoming the 12th migrant killed trying to cross the Channel this year. Now let's take a look at the top headlines in today's newspapers in the Middle East. Starting from the UAE, the Khalij Times leads, reporting that hundreds of Emirati candidates and voters turned out to cast their ballots on the first morning of early voting for Federal National Council elections 2015 in support for their families and tribes. The paper also reports that 2 suspected Daesh militants were killed and 3 were arrested by Saudi security forces in coordinated raids in the capital Riyadh and the eastern city of Dammam. From Lebanon, the Daily Star leads, reporting that police and a couple dozen activists from the We Want Accountability movement demanding round-the-clock power engaged in a brief scuffle during a protest outside the Energy Ministry. The paper also reports that security forces detained a man suspected of involvement in the 2013 South Lebanon clashes and another man over the 2014 Syria border battle in separate operations. The Egypt Independent leads, reporting that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said he is ready to pardon detained journalists, but will only act within the limits of his power as President of the Republic and out of respect for the judiciary. The paper also reports that candidates for the first stage of the House of Representatives elections began their electoral campaigns Tuesday, which will continue until October the 15th. Now let's take a look at the top Middle East headlines from the UK papers. The Independent leads its Middle East news, reporting that Russia is considering conducting airstrikes against ISIS in Syria, but has ruled out the possibility of Russian troops taking part in ground operations, President Vladimir Putin has said. Mr. Putin spoke after meeting Barack Obama following the UN General Assembly, where the 2 leaders' speeches highlighted their differences in how they would end the Syrian civil war. The Telegraph reports that the ISIS jihadist dubbed Mrs. Terror and 3 other British extremists have been added to a list of the world's most wanted terrorists at the request of the Prime Minister. All 4 were added to the UN al-Qaeda sanctions regime list last night, which tracks extremists, and are believed to be mainly based around al-Raqqa, the ISIS stronghold in Syria. The Guardian reports that the death toll from an airstrike on a wedding party in Yemen has jumped to 131, medics have said, making it one of the deadliest attacks on civilians in Yemen's war and drawing strong condemnation from the UN Secretary-General. A Saudi-led Arab coalition that has air supremacy over Yemen has strongly denied any role in the tragedy, and a coalition spokesman suggested local militias may have been responsible. Now let's take a look at the top Middle East headlines in the international papers. From China, the Global Times reports that 16 Turkish workers held in Iraq since early September have been released, a group purportedly behind the kidnapping said in an online statement on Monday. The decision to release the 16 Turkish workers was made after Turkey ordered the criminal al-Fatah militia to ease the siege of 2 towns in northwestern Syria and opened a safe passage for 10,000 women and children, elderly and sick people trapped there. And finally, Germany's Deutsche Welle reports that Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed a UN resolution to consolidate the international fight against terrorism. Putin has said backing Assad was the wisest course of action, with Syrian government forces the only effective fighting force against IS and other Islamist groups. And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow. Bye for now.